Story 1. The plans they have for the future are plans of being together, not fights over whose dream they are going to live. Story 2. I'm a therapist and I see about 5 couples at a time. I can't say there's a sure sign a couple will work out. Relationships are ever-changing. There's no predicting how we or our partners will change over time. A few things I see that are good predictors. Each member of the relationship being accountable and willing to admit faults, rather than always being on the attack. Defensiveness makes it hard to resolve arguments. Not treating couples therapy like a courtroom. Too many couples act like I'm a judge and they need to make their best argument why they're right and their partner is wrong. Looking out for each other. When one starts crying, a sign of empathy is very important. A hand on the shoulder, an acknowledgement of pain. Once you can listen to your partner cry without caring, you're not really a couple anymore in my eyes. Respect. Respect is the first thing to go in a relationship. I encourage every couple I see to recapture the respect they had on their first date. You shouldn't feel comfortable calling each other names or cursing. The list is endless. Story 3. I am a counselor and see couples. The biggest indicator of success, in my opinion, is the ability to assume best intent. For example, if a husband forgets to grab the trash bag on the way out in the morning, rather than assuming he is lazy or rude, the other partner can assume the most positive reason, such as he forgot or overlooked it, and not personalize it. Look for best intent until proven otherwise. The second best indicator is that both parties have empathy. This quality is surprisingly absent in many of my clients. If you cannot consider how your behavior impacts others, it will become a problem in the relationship. Finally, if a person can take responsibility for their behavior and actions and genuinely apologize with behavior change, it is significant. Sadly, most couples do not demonstrate these behaviors when they come to my office. Couples who regularly engage in these behaviors typically do not reach the point of needing counseling. Story 4. They remember why they fell in love in the first place. When I ask them to tell me something they love about their partner, the successful couples light up immediately. Story 5. Being flexible is the main factor, in my opinion. It is impossible to be compatible with someone 100%. Therefore, if both sides are not willing to collaborate, no matter how much they love each other, the relationship will end sooner or later. I have seen that a lot, and I can tell after the first or second session with my clients if the relationship will work out or not. Story 6. Not a therapist, but I can report that we had a marriage counselor who told us we were both too messed up to make much progress in the relationship. She advised that we stay together while working on our separate issues because couples who want to break up do not keep coming to the marriage counselor as long as we did. She was right. We spent a decade working on ourselves with professional help. The relationship was still difficult, but we reached a point where we could try again with a new counselor. It worked. We are happier now, both individually and as a couple, than we have been since before we were married over 25 years ago. Edit to add. Since it has been mentioned a couple of times, let me clarify one point. The first marriage counselor was not just feeding us a line of nonsense to keep us paying her while she did no good and blamed her failure on our separate problems. She told us to stop wasting time and money and to stop tearing each other down trying to fix the relationship until we had done serious and deep work on ourselves separately. She said she often advised couples with problems as deep as ours to split up, but she was not advising that because she could see that we were deeply in love and committed to staying married. She gave us hope that if we were patient, hardworking, and willing to really examine ourselves, we could find a pathway back to each other. She was right. If she had not been so clear about this advice and why she was giving it to us, we might very well have broken up our family. Story 7. Bids for attention are one of the greatest predictors of a relationship lasting. It seems simple and inconsequential, but it is always the little things that matter most. When you see a funny video and want to show them, are they interested? When they talk about their day, do you get curious and ask questions? When you have had a big day and flop on the couch with a sigh, do they ask you what is going on? It can be as small as a laugh while looking out the window or as big as crying on the couch. The big question is, do you both respond to bids for attention from your partner? The more consistently you both respond, the more likely you are to make it for the long haul. With awareness comes growth. You might both be really bad at these things but genuinely love each other. The more you show up for each other in the little ways, the more intimate and in love you both will feel. Story 8. Not a couples therapist, but I did do couples counseling with my ex-husband. She told us many times that we had much more promising indicators than many of the couples she sees. We loved each other, were best friends, and always assumed the best of each other. We would sit together, not apart, and seek and give emotional assurance during the sessions. We would even provide context for each other's actions, such as if I thought he wasn't being fair to himself or was presenting himself badly. We were there because he had cheated. It had been 3 to 4 years since I was sure he cheated, and I had randomly suspected he was cheating on me with his coworker. We were trying to rebuild trust because I should just believe him if he said he wasn't cheating. However, he was cheating the whole time with that girl. They are married now. I do think it was what was best, and I love my life. Still, sometimes the markers or signs are wrong. Story 9. I have some training in couples therapy but do not do it regularly, so take this with a grain of salt. One positive sign is when both partners can understand the context of each other's complaints and respond based on that understanding. An example might be, the wife complains about the husband not taking out the garbage on time that morning. The husband's response is not about the specific incident of taking out the garbage, but about the wife's general views or values surrounding timelines and how their perspectives might differ. This allows a deeper conversation about their underlying values and where there may be common ground. If the husband becomes defensive and says, "I was busy that day, I had to get to work," or "You do not empty the dishwasher on time either," there are more serious issues at play. Story 10. I work with couples. I will name 2 key factors. 1. Each partner having self-awareness of how they are showing up emotionally in the relationship. A willingness to change behaviors that are showing up, regardless of whether their partner changes. This means not making change conditional. Story 11. The real answer is when couples attend therapy before the relationship is already in serious trouble. The willingness to build skills and relationship resilience early on, with both partners taking accountability and responsibility for their own issues and mental health. Story 12. It is refreshing to hear a comment section with actual answers and not just communication, said by immature individuals whose only romantic experience has been watching it on the Disney Channel. Story 13. How well you can get through the lows and come out stronger, rather than how many highs you have together. Story 14. I am not a therapist, but it is well known in the wedding industry that if a couple smashes cake in each other's faces at the wedding, they are more likely to get divorced. Story 15. John Gottman has studied this. The 4 horsemen: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Story 16. Honestly, the one foolproof sign is when they stop keeping score. They genuinely apologize by saying, "I'm sorry," before they even think about who is winning the fight. They can still laugh together in the middle of a heated debate. They call themselves a team and actually mean it. They are more interested in how to fix the problem than in whose fault it is. And yes, they still get butterflies when they see each other. If they can master these, you have a long-term couple. Story 17. It's so funny. So many of these are just, do you like your partner? Or are you just there because you got married? I can't speak for anyone else, and I'm certainly not an expert. But I really like my wife and she seems to like me. We both waited for someone we genuinely liked and waited through bad relationships to get here. I hate making her upset, and she hates it when I'm upset. She doesn't hate me when I'm upset. She hates the fact that I'm upset. I would do pretty much anything to make sure she's not upset, and she knows that. So when I forget to take out the trash, to another commenter's point, we assume positive intent because the fact that we don't want to make each other sad is explicit and constantly reinforced. Again, I'm not sad because she's sad. That's a normal human emotion, and everyone should be allowed to feel how they feel. But if I make her sad, I want to fix it. Are you really with people you don't like? Just wait. You deserve to find someone who wants you to be happy. My wife and I didn't find each other until we were grown adults in our late 30s. Then we had 3 kids, lived in 3 different countries, bought a house together before we were married, mixed finances, fully planned to have a prenup and dropped the ball, broke every rule in the book. And it works because we really like each other, even if we annoy each other all the time. I don't know. Just love the person you chose. There's no such thing as good enough when you're picking your partner for the rest of your life. Story 18. While I am not a therapist, there are some things I have consistently noticed in successful marriages. My grandparents, for example, have been married for roughly 50 years. My grandfather will do small acts of kindness for my grandmother, like picking flowers from his garden for her or randomly telling her he loves her. I cannot describe how exactly, but you can just tell that he absolutely adores her. It is the small things that matter most in a relationship. You could go all out and buy your partner a car as a surprise, or you could make them their favorite meal, or give them alone time when they need it. Of course, it is still good to go all out every so often, but it gets old if everything you do for your partner is big and flashy. Story 19. My parents have been together for 40 years, and the marriage will end when one of them dies first. They are best friends. They are polar opposites. They argue for themselves, not against each other. In 40 years, not once has either of them resorted to insults or verbal attacks. The moment the person you love tries to hurt you on purpose, verbally, emotionally, or physically, it's over. That is not love. That is a total lack of self-respect, confusing the line between passion and pain. Story 20. I worked as an office manager for a group of licensed clinical professional counselors, licensed clinical social workers, and psychologists who had about 25% of their clients for marriage counseling. You could see, just by their demeanor and behavior in the waiting room, which marriages had hope and which were doomed. Specifically, I noticed that when one party was reluctant to be there while the other was hopeful, they would leave with an air of toxicity and would not return for a second or third session. When I saw two people both wanting to be there, they would return and almost seem closer because of the experience. Honestly, it was almost a gut instinct based on demeanor. Story 21. They talk to each other during a session when they argue. They do not speak to the therapist in the third person. Story 22. Relatedly, have you ever had couples who divorced or broke up for a significant amount of time, truly work on themselves alone, then find their way back to each other and be truly happy? Story 23. So how do you deal with lack of empathy? My wife stonewalls and refuses to take any responsibility for how her actions could upset me. Yet, she constantly responds with criticism and points out what I am doing wrong. I have spent 20 years actively trying to work on these issues, as she insists it is all my fault. I am not perfect, but I listen, and I believe I have changed. My parents tried to intervene a few years ago but did not get anywhere. Story 24. I am not a therapist, but from what I have read and seen, a huge green flag is how couples handle conflict. If they fight fairly, meaning they still show respect even when they are mad, avoid name-calling or belittling, and genuinely listen to each other, that is a huge sign they will last. Couples who can disagree without destroying each other's dignity usually have a strong foundation. Another sure sign is that they can still be friends underneath the romance. You see them joke around, support each other's dreams, and genuinely like each other as people, not just as partners. That kind of friendship and respect seems to predict a really solid relationship. Story 25. I think if the couple are genuinely friends, they may be working through issues. However, if the friendship is the foundation, it should mean that they can at least learn to agree to disagree. Story 26. Being a couple in love is not a roller coaster of emotions or what you see on reality television and in movies. It is being comfortable with someone. If you are not comfortable and constantly on a roller coaster, run away. Story 27. I had a couple who argued about each other's favorite things. He said, "My favorite color is green." She replied, "No, it's not. You never wear green. My favorite food is spaghetti." He responded, "No, it's not. I eat more spaghetti than you." These are real examples. We were talking about getting to know each other again after being together for 10 years. He also ignored her on Valentine's Day after she planned a beautiful, warm evening together after work. Another couple was sad. He needed to stop drinking, and she refused to remove alcohol from the home despite claiming she did not drink often. It was going to kill him, so he left and chose to live. Story 28. Just 3 days ago, I talked to my partner about couples counseling. It is a very weird coincidence, and I am definitely reading this thread eagerly. Story 29. Dr. John Gottman explains it very well in this speech. Basically, a culture of appreciation, love maps, and responding to the bids for attention. As opposed to criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling, which immediately predict a relationship is going to fail. Story 30. Not a therapist, but from observing what causes marriages to break up, I have noticed one pattern. Couples who do not discuss or make big decisions together, such as buying a house, switching careers, or starting companies. When you meet that couple, you sense it is not equal in terms of decision-making power, nor do they talk about these decisions together. Basically, it is not a partnership, but cohabitation. Story 31. Couples Counselor. I'll mirror what others have said, but here are a few points. Express feelings and needs using I language, rather than contempt and blame with you language. Accept influence and honor expressed needs, rather than being defensive or neglectful. Show empathy and create safety, rather than being critical. Listen and reflect back what you've heard without problem-solving or derailing with your perspective. Take accountability and responsibility for your own behavior, rather than being defensive or deflecting blame. Assume positive intent and explore potential misunderstandings, rather than personalizing or assuming ill intent. Couples who stay together communicate as if they are on the same island and share a dream of living together there. Couples who don't stay together exist on separate islands and do not allow or trust the other to join their island, so they become critical or defensive to protect their truth. In summary, couples stay together if they show empathy, listen to understand, generate safety with calm compassion, and support each other enthusiastically. Story 32. A couples therapist told my wife and me that our willingness to attend counseling or therapy is a strong indicator. You both have to want to overcome your issues for the sake of your marriage. Story 33. I'm not a certified therapist, but I have read many marriage and counseling books. If one party thinks it is acceptable to give the other person the silent treatment as a form of punishment, it is generally game over. The 7 principles for making marriage work is very useful for this topic. Story 34. They have a common hobby. This means their tastes are similar and they can help and support each other in that hobby, whether it is mass multiplayer online role-playing game or going to the gym. Story 35. I would recommend Couples Therapy, the television show, to gain an inside look at what prevents progress and which couples stay together. Many couples I have worked with rigidly stick to their points of view. This causes an endless loop of both sides not feeling heard and becoming defensive. My approach interrupts this cycle by asking couples to tell me what they heard their partner say. This breaks the cycle and often reduces a great deal of tension, regardless of other issues. The ability to apply this skill independently, without my constant intervention, is a positive sign. Story 36. Not a therapist, but a coordinator for a whole behavioral health department. I make your initial appointment and process paperwork. Usually, we have gotten to know each other a little by the time you arrange your appointment. We do not do couple therapy as much as individualized therapy, where the clinician may ask the partner to participate in a session occasionally. Several of our clinicians are trained to treat couples and do so very well. I can say with complete certainty that the ones most likely to work things out are the ones who actually show up to appointments. This is true for almost all therapy and life in general, but especially with couples. Many people go through the motions and say they want to improve, but when it is time to take action, they are nowhere to be seen. The number of wasted appointments that could have been given to someone wanting to attend is staggering. I have convinced my supervisors to allow only one reschedule before being put on a wait list. Story 37. My therapist of 10 years told me, if you all can row a boat together without arguing, you do not have anything to worry about. Story 38. The ability to take accountability and apologize. I am sorry I snapped at you and hurt your feelings versus, I am sorry you got upset. Story 39. This may sound depressing, but the answer is none. In our lifetimes, we shift and change, and there is no way to ensure that the couple in my office is the same couple in 5 years. Aging, illness, career, children, and other factors change you bit by bit. If a couple is doing really well with me and continues on the same path, sure, they can last. But will they try that hard amid those transitions? Who knows? Each day is a new day for a marriage, and you do have to work on it as such. Story 40. I am not a couples therapist, but I think maintaining mutual curiosity is key and accepting considerably more bids for connection than you turn down. For example, a couple is in a waiting room together, such as for an important financial meeting. One goes to the window and says, "Oh, look at that bird." If the other rolls their eyes and reacts poorly, that is not good. However, if they can set aside what is on their mind and respond positively and with interest because they see their partner's curiosity and excitement, that is probably a close to sure sign that they will work out. Such small moments can be very telling. Of course, things can get difficult for one or the other person, but in the long term, these small moments are the best litmus test of how a couple is doing. Story 41. Not a therapist either, but I do not remember where I heard this expression. Maybe a podcast from a relationship expert or something. They said, in a relationship, when sex is good, it is just one thing. When sex is bad, it is everything. Story 42. Wow, all of these comments made me realize what a difficult situation my ex and I were for our therapist. We had solid plans for our future because they were based on shared dreams. We assumed good faith in each other. We were accountable and responsible. Our therapist loved us and told us repeatedly that we were the best couple she had ever met. But we ended up breaking up because of some truly terrible circumstances, which were made worse by my ex's friends, and it ended horribly. Our therapist quit her practice shortly after we broke up. Story 43. The 5 classic signs that a relationship may not last are as follows. 1. Lack of intimacy and physical connection. When physical intimacy and affection diminish or disappear, it can signal a lack of emotional connection and growing distance between partners. Communication breakdowns. Arguments, lack of communication, or negative and disrespectful communication are significant warning signs. Healthy communication is crucial for a strong relationship, and its absence can indicate deeper problems. Diminished shared goals and future plans. If partners are no longer planning for the future together or their goals and values no longer align, it can be a sign that the relationship is not sustainable. Loss of trust. Trust is a fundamental pillar of any relationship, and when it is broken or eroded, it can be very difficult to rebuild. Persistent negativity and conflict. Constant fighting, criticism, and negativity can create a toxic environment that wears down the relationship and makes it difficult to repair. Story 44. When I start to see partners validating each other, I know there is going to be meaningful change. Validation is challenging in general, partly because it often means admitting to some level of wrongdoing, which can feel exposing. You are putting aside your defenses, risking rejection, and showing your partner that their experience matters. When I see people making space for that kind of vulnerability, I am incredibly hopeful. Story 45. I learned that if you are in a relationship, you should not do 50-50 with each other. It should always be 100%. If your partner is only feeling 48% on some days, you should fill the 52% and make it whole for both of you and vice versa. Story 46. They are both motivated to work on their relationship, value their relationship, respect one another, and are willing to listen and accept feedback from their partner. Another sure sign is that they are putting in the work outside of sessions too. Story 47. 1. Recognition of their part or role in contributing to the relationship strife. Perspective taking. A willingness to try to understand where the other person is coming from and why their subjective reality may be different. This does not mean you have to agree with them. Ensuring that what psychologist John Gottman calls the 4 horsemen, contempt, criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling, are identified and healthfully worked through. Gottman considers contempt to be the most destructive. Respect is essential. Story 48. Couples that work communicate openly, do not try to win fights, are best friends, grow together, share core values, and still want to be intimate after arguing about something pointless. Not a couple therapist, but speaking from my own experience. Story 49. Not a therapist, but sex. If a couple has strong sexual chemistry, they are likely to work out in the long run. It does not mean sex is the only thing. It does not mean you have to be attractive, but it does mean you need to find your partner attractive, to want to connect with them with your whole being. Story 50. I'm not a therapist, but from what I have seen, when a couple can openly disagree without becoming defensive or cruel, it is a very good sign. The ability to work through conflict with respect is a solid foundation. Story 51. In my mind, if they are both dressed in gym clothes and running shoes, once they start stretching, they are probably going to work out. Story 52. Both partners are willing to put in the effort to work on and maintain the relationship, reflect on their strengths and weaknesses, and be committed to continuous personal and relationship growth. Story 53. I was told once that you can tell based on how a couple talks about meeting for the first time. If it is positive, there is a good chance, but if there is negativity or resentment, then the chances are slim. I am not sure if there are any studies or science behind that. I am not a therapist. Story 54. Being able to see past their own feelings to better understand why their partner is upset instead of constantly being on the defense. Story 55. There are no sure signs. One day, one person in the couple falls out of love, decides they are done, and that is it. Nothing in life is safe. Story 56. When both people take responsibility for their part in conflicts without immediately trying to defend themselves, it is not about avoiding arguments but about how they argue. If a couple can disagree, stay curious instead of combative, and say things like, "Yes, I see how I messed that up too," they have a real chance. Also, if they still laugh together, really laugh even in hard moments, that is gold. Story 57. My spouse and I are celebrating 34 years this weekend. I am a retired professor with Parkinson's disease, and my spouse is a scientist. We believe our relationship works because being together inspires us to be better people. Kinder, more ethical, and more compassionate. I firmly believe that this marriage is the single most significant factor in my success as a teacher, a parent, and a person. My love motivates me to be a better person in every way. Story 58. John Gottman conducted extensive research on couples and provided many valuable insights. I highly suggest reading a couple of his books. Story 59. Being able to move through conflict by working towards understanding, even if people do not always agree. Ultimately, recognizing that it is healthy to have conflict, but how you fight and how you repair is important. Story 60. Not a therapist, but I am 19 years into marriage, and I can honestly say I fall into a deeper love with my husband as time goes on. One of the many things that makes us successful is laughter. We make each other laugh at least once a day. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.